What is the best LFE cutoff frequency recommendation? I have an active subwoofer for LFE. Is sub 80 the correct setting in the MP40? I'm assuming all crossovers are done in the MP60 and the sub settings should be left as in THX. And that is a good question because in the speaker setup, you really only take care of what the speakers are like, not yet what the subwoofer should cover. So let's go back in the menu again. And we have set one subwoofer here. And if we click on edit again, you can see you can set an LFE channel cutoff. And that is the low pass of the LFE. It's very important that you understand this menu setting as for what is written. LFE channel cutoff. That's only for the low frequency effect signal. So how much of that incoming LFE signal from the soundtrack should be covered by your subwoofer? So what is the best setting for this one? It's kind of independent from what your speaker setup is like, because this is the LFE signal. If you set the LFE channel cutoff to 80, that sounds alright because you have read about THX and 80 Hertz and so on very often. But I like to show you a few screenshots or graphs where we advise for a slightly higher setup. Let's look at one here. So this graph shows you what the LFE can cover according to a Dolby soundtrack or DTS soundtrack. So of course in most movies it's more around 80 Hertz and then not much happening, but in theory in some movies it can go up to 100 or even 120 Hertz. So meaning in our next graph here, if I set it to cut off 80 Hertz, there's a roll-off beginning around 80 Hertz. So this, as you can see, would not cover all the LFE signals that might be on a soundtrack. If we go a little bit higher to 100, you can see it covers more, but only if we set it to, for example, 125, so sub 125 in our menu, then you can see this really covers the complete LFE signal. And that is our recommended setup for the LFE. Again, make sure that your subwoofer can handle this, but that's another topic. But if you ask about what's the best setting, well, the best setting is that it really covers what can be on the LFE soundtrack. As you can see, this is more about sound performance. And sound performance also brings us to our next question, which can really limit your bass performance, maybe even without really knowing it. And that question is, what is the subwoofer delay setting for? It's very easy to ignore this because you might say delay, I don't want a delay, so I put this to 0, and but it's very important. So let's have a look at the menu again. If we click on edit and go into the LFE, you can see that there is an LFE amplifier delay in milliseconds. And as the word amplifier delay already indicates, this is not a delay in distance. This is really a delay of the amplifier. And here you set a delay of the processing time of your subwoofer. So to give you some examples, this can be from a Class D amplifier. This can be whenever the amplifier or the subwoofer has some kind of DSP signal processing, then there will be a signal delay. It will be some kind of delay in reference to the main speakers. And in this setting here, you can take care of that. So two things you have to do. First of all, you have to find out the signal delay of your loudspeakers, of your amplifier. And second, you have to find out the signal delay of your subwoofer or amplifier of the subwoofer. If you don't find it in the small prints, ask the manufacturer, because every Class D or DSP based amplifier or subwoofer will have a kind of signal delay or latency. So let's look at 3 examples here. So one is a subwoofer, which is quite powerful, and it has a signal delay or latency of 0.8 milliseconds. Now 0.8 milliseconds is not so much in the long wavelengths of a subwoofer, but it's still something, and why not take care of it? Why not put it in? So in this case, you would put in 0.8 milliseconds as the signal delay of your LFE, of your subwoofer, and then it's totally in time with your main speakers again. I have another example here, which is a Class D design, and there the signal delay or the latency is much longer. It's 2.7 milliseconds because there was a DSP, there's a DSP involved, and a lot of filtering and a lot of other things. So that latency is quite long, and that can be covered in the settings of an MP40, MP60. Another example of this one here, again, a very capable subwoofer, but it has 2 milliseconds latency, and that can be covered here. So again, this is not any distance or delay because of any distance. This is really because of signal delay or processing delay or latency in the subwoofer. So let's add something here, for example, 2 milliseconds, and save done. And now your subwoofer is totally in sync, time-wise, phase-wise, with the main speakers. And that is very important.